Tonight, we travel back into one of the quietest corners of the ancient world, where the first light of morning slowly touches the wide waters of the Nile. Long before the markets begin to stir, before the voices of workers drift across dusty roads, and before the warm desert sun begins its steady climb into the sky, the fields already wait in perfect silence. The river moves without hurry. Small waves brush gently against muddy banks where reeds bend with the breeze. Far away, water birds stand quietly in the shallow pools, watching the morning appear little by little. The air is cool for only a short while, carrying the soft smell of wet earth left behind by the great river. Soon the heat will return, as it always does, but these early moments belong to calm. A few stars still remain above the western desert, fading one by one into the growing light. Smoke begins to rise from small mud brick homes scattered near the river. Someone has already placed fresh bread into a clay oven. Somewhere else, a mother quietly grinds grain between two heavy stones while the rest of the family still sleeps beneath simple woven blankets. This is ancient Egypt, not during a grand celebration, nor in the middle of a famous battle, but during an ordinary season of growing life. The greatest harvest of the Pharaoh has not yet filled the storehouses. It begins here instead, in quiet places where ordinary hands wake before sunrise. Every basket of grain, every loaf of bread, every offering placed before the temples, and every meal eaten inside the palace begins with people who may never have met the Pharaoh at all. Their days are long. Their work is slow. Their lives move with the river. And tonight, we simply walk beside them. The village rests close enough to the Nile that its people can hear the gentle movement of water during the quiet hours before dawn. Their homes are built from sun-dried mud bricks, their walls thick enough to soften the afternoon heat. Roofs are flat, covered with reeds and packed earth. Ladders lean quietly against outside walls, leading to places where families sometimes sleep during the hottest nights of summer. Inside one small house, an elderly farmer slowly opens his eyes before anyone else. There is no clock waiting beside his bed. He does not need one. His life has followed the rhythm of sunrise for longer than he can remember. He sits quietly for a moment. The room is still dark. His joints feel stiff from yesterday's work. His hands are rough, marked by years of pulling reeds, carrying baskets, and turning the rich soil left behind after the Nile floods. Every movement reminds him that another day has begun. Outside, the first birds begin their gentle songs. He stands slowly. His sandals wait near the doorway exactly where he left them the evening before. The cool clay floor feels pleasant beneath his feet. His wife has already begun preparing the morning meal. She says very little. Words are not needed. Their routine has remained almost unchanged through many seasons. She places coarse bread beside a small bowl filled with onions. A little dried fish rests nearby. There is also a cup of cool water collected yesterday. Breakfast is simple. It always has been. The farmer eats slowly, knowing the hours ahead will demand steady strength rather than speed. Nothing is rushed. Even the silence seems familiar. Soon their oldest son joins them. He is still young enough to move without stiffness, yet old enough to understand every task waiting beyond the village. He quietly gathers a wooden hoe. His younger brother lifts several woven baskets. Outside, a donkey waits patiently beside a low fence, already accustomed to another day's journey toward the fields. As the eastern sky slowly brightens, more doors begin opening throughout the village. Neighbors greet one another with gentle nods. Children still rub sleep from their eyes. Dogs stretch lazily in narrow alleys between homes. Someone laughs softly after dropping a bundle of reeds. A woman balances a clay jar upon her head as she walks toward the river. Every movement feels slow. Every sound blends naturally into the peaceful morning. The harvest season is never the work of one person alone. Entire villages move together like quiet streams joining the great Nile itself. The fields spread outward in long green strips beside the river. Their shape follows the land left behind after the annual flood. Months earlier, the Nile had risen beyond its ordinary banks, covering the countryside beneath calm brown water. It arrived almost like a patient visitor, bringing dark fertile mud from distant lands far to the south. Now the water has slowly withdrawn. In its place remains rich black earth. The farmers know this soil well. It is soft beneath their feet. When they press their hands into it, they can feel the moisture still hidden below the surface. Without these floods, there would be little harvest. Without the harvest, the villages would struggle. Without the villages, the kingdom itself could not stand. The Pharaoh's greatest harvest begins not inside grand palaces but here, where quiet people bend toward the earth before sunrise. The farmer kneels. He scoops a handful of soil. He lets it slowly fall back between his fingers. The earth feels ready. Nearby, another family guides oxen across the fields. Their wooden plow cuts shallow lines through the soft ground while birds follow behind, searching for insects uncovered by each careful step. The oxen move without hurry. Their breathing is slow. Leather harnesses gently creak. Dust rises only a little because the soil still carries moisture from the flood. A young boy walks beside the animals. He speaks softly to them, not with commands, but almost with quiet conversation. He has grown alongside these animals since childhood. Their steady pace has become part of his own understanding of time. Farther away, women scatter seed from woven baskets. Their hands move in smooth, practiced motions. Grain falls like tiny streams of golden rain across the waiting earth. Each handful represents hope many months from now. No one can rush growing wheat. The river decides much. The sun decides more. Human hands simply help where they can. The morning remains pleasantly cool. Workers appreciate these gentle hours. By midday, the heat will become heavy enough to slow every movement. But now they work steadily beneath a pale sky still touched with traces of dawn. Small irrigation channels stretch between the fields like narrow ribbons of water. Farmers use simple wooden tools to guide the flow toward thirsty crops. One small barrier is lifted. Water quietly enters another channel. A little farther away, another opening is closed. The movement is gentle. Nothing is wasted. Every drop matters. Children often help with these tasks. They splash their feet into the shallow channels while older relatives remind them not to block the water. Sometimes they laugh quietly. Sometimes they simply watch tiny fish swim through the moving current. Even work carries moments of peace. Across the fields, the smell of wet earth mixes with growing plants warmed by the first sunlight. Palm trees stand quietly along the riverbanks. Their leaves whisper whenever the breeze passes through. Date clusters hang high above, still ripening. Beyond them, the desert begins almost suddenly. Golden sand stretches toward distant hills where almost nothing grows. The contrast feels gentle rather than harsh. The river gives life. The desert waits in silence. Together they shape the world of ancient Egypt. As morning continues, scribes begin arriving from nearby administrative buildings. Unlike the farmers, their hands remain mostly smooth. They carry wooden writing boards and reed pens instead of hoes and baskets. Their work is different. No less important. One scribe settles beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. He watches groups of workers moving through assigned fields. Occasionally he writes careful marks onto sheets of papyrus. He records measurements, expected yields, labor assignments, grain deliveries. The pharaoh cannot personally visit every village. Instead, countless scribes quietly preserve order across the kingdom. Their writing travels farther than their footsteps. The farmer glances toward the scribe only briefly. Neither interrupts the other. Both understand their place within the enormous rhythm that feeds cities, temples, workshops, and royal storehouses. The kingdom depends equally upon careful records and patient hands. By now, sunlight spreads warmly across the countryside. The coolness of dawn begins slipping away. Workers remove simple linen shawls from their shoulders. Sweat appears slowly across brows. Still they continue. They have always continued. Generations before them worked these same fields. Generations after them will likely do the same. Time itself seems to move differently beside the Nile. The farmer's youngest daughter carries fresh water to the workers. The clay jar feels heavy against her shoulder, yet she smiles quietly whenever someone thanks her. She pauses beneath a small acacia tree. Its shade is thin but welcome. The workers gather only briefly. Each drinks slowly. No one wastes water. The jar is passed carefully from hand to hand before she begins the slow walk back toward the village to refill it again. Meanwhile, the baker inside the village prepares another batch of bread. The smell drifts gently through narrow streets. Children chase one another between doorways until their parents gently call them back to simple chores. Goats wander lazily. Cats rest upon warm stone walls. A potter slowly shapes wet clay into storage jars that may one day hold grain from this very harvest. Everything connects. The farmer grows wheat. The potter shapes jars. The baker prepares bread. The fisherman brings food from the river. The carpenter repairs tools. The scribe records it all. Even the Pharaoh's greatest harvest belongs to thousands of quiet lives woven together with patient care. By late morning, sunlight reflects brightly across the Nile. Small fishing boats drift gently downstream. Their square linen sails catch just enough breeze to move without effort. Some fishermen cast woven nets into calm water. Others quietly repair torn ropes while floating near the shore. They understand the river almost as well as the farmers understand their fields. Fish become another steady gift from the Nile. Not every meal contains meat. Fish often fills that place instead. Nearby, bundles of papyrus grow thick along the water's edge. Workers cut long green stalks with careful strokes. Later, craftsmen will transform these plants into writing material, mats, baskets, sandals, and even small boats. Very little is wasted. Almost everything serves another purpose. The rhythm of life continues without hurry. Above, the sun climbs steadily higher. The day's warm breath settles across the land. The fields shimmer gently beneath the growing light. And still, the people of ancient Egypt move quietly through another ordinary morning, planting the first peaceful steps toward the Pharaoh's greatest harvest. As the morning slowly unfolds, the last traces of cool air drift away across the fields. The warmth of the sun settles gently over the land, not yet harsh, but steady enough that every worker feels it upon their shoulders. Shadows grow shorter. The songs of the earliest birds become quieter. Even the breeze seems to pause now and then, as if resting before the long afternoon ahead. The farmer straightens his back for only a moment. He places one hand against his lower spine and looks across the growing fields. From where he stands, the land appears alive with gentle movement. One family guides oxen through soft earth. Another gathers reeds near an irrigation channel. Children carry small baskets that seem almost too large for them, though they proudly refuse help. Women walk carefully between rows of young plants, removing weeds one by one with patient hands. Farther away, several older men repair a narrow earthen bank that keeps precious water flowing in the right direction. No voice rises above the others. People speak softly. Much of the work is done without words at all. After many seasons together, neighbors understand each other's movements almost as easily as they understand a changing river. The Nile itself continues its quiet journey north. Its wide surface sparkles beneath the growing sunlight. Occasionally a fish breaks through the water before disappearing again with barely a sound. A pair of white birds glide low across the river before settling among tall reeds. Nearby, a small wooden boat moves gently with the current. Two fishermen work side by side. One carefully gathers the net while the other untangles strands that caught upon a smooth piece of driftwood. Their hands move slowly. There is no reason to hurry. Fish cannot be persuaded by speed. Like the crops in the fields, they come only through patience. Back on the shore, a narrow path follows the riverbank toward another village several miles away. Already the path carries quiet travelers. A merchant leads two donkeys loaded with woven baskets. Their steady footsteps leave soft marks in the dusty road. The baskets contain dried dates, onions, coarse salt, and small pieces of linen cloth to exchange with neighboring villages. The merchant walks beneath a simple linen head covering that shields his face from the brightening sun. He has traveled this road many times. Every bend in the river feels familiar. Every grove of palm trees serves as a silent landmark. Along the path, he greets passing farmers with gentle smiles. News travels slowly in ancient Egypt. A traveler often carries more than goods. He brings stories from distant villages. He shares word of flood levels, healthy crops, family celebrations, repairs to canals, and temple festivals that may soon arrive. The conversations are brief. The work waiting in the fields leaves little time for long visits. Still, each greeting reminds everyone that the river connects many lives beyond the horizon. The farmer returns his attention to the soil beneath his feet. He notices tiny cracks beginning to appear where yesterday's water has already soaked into the earth. The ground remains fertile, but careful watering will soon become more important. He lifts a wooden shovel and gently clears a narrow channel blocked by fallen reeds. Almost immediately, cool water begins flowing again. It moves with quiet determination through the small ditch. The farmer watches carefully. He has learned over many years that water has its own way of traveling. Sometimes it follows exactly where people guide it. Sometimes it finds another path. His father taught him never to force the river. Instead, he learned to understand its habits. Small adjustments often accomplish more than great effort. Nearby, two young brothers kneel beside another irrigation channel. One uses his hands to remove clumps of mud. The other places smooth stones along the edge to keep the water from washing away the bank. Their work is slow. Occasionally they pause to splash cool water onto their faces. Their mother smiles quietly from across the field. She remembers doing the very same work when she was their age. Many lessons in Egypt are not written on papyrus. They pass from parent to child through ordinary mornings just like this one. As the sun climbs higher, the village begins preparing the midday meal. Smoke rises steadily from clay ovens. The smell of fresh bread drifts across narrow streets lined with mud brick walls. Inside one small courtyard, an elderly woman grinds barley between two heavy stones. The rhythm is steady. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound has filled her mornings for decades. Her hands know every movement without thought. Nearby, another woman kneads dough inside a wide clay bowl. She adds a little water. A pinch of salt. Then more flour. Her fingers press gently until the mixture becomes smooth. The bread will bake quickly inside the hot oven. Some loaves will feed the family. Others will travel with workers into the fields. Nothing is wasted. Grain represents months of careful labor. Every loaf carries the memory of flooded fields, patient planting, warm sunlight, and countless quiet hours beneath the open sky. Children wander through the village carrying small bundles of firewood gathered earlier that morning. They stack the wood neatly beside the ovens. The younger ones occasionally stop to watch the bread baking. Warm air escapes each time the oven door is opened. The smell is comforting. Simple. Familiar. For many families, this scent has marked the beginning and end of every day. In another part of the village, a potter continues shaping storage jars. His workshop remains pleasantly cool because its thick walls keep much of the heat outside. Rows of unfinished pots stand drying in the shade. Some are small enough for oil. Others are large enough to hold grain through many months. The potter's wheel turns slowly beneath his hands. Wet clay rises gently between his fingers. He adds water now and then, smoothing tiny imperfections before they have time to dry. He rarely speaks while working. The clay asks for quiet attention. Each vessel must be balanced carefully. Too much pressure weakens the walls. Too little leaves them uneven. Patience shapes better pots than strength. Outside the workshop, a donkey waits beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. Its ears flick lazily at passing flies. The animal has already carried heavy loads since sunrise. Now it rests. Even working animals receive moments of stillness during the hottest hours. The heat continues building across the countryside. Air shimmers above the distant fields. The rich black soil slowly dries upon the surface while remaining cool just beneath. Farmers know exactly how deep to press their fingers into the earth. They can feel hidden moisture long before it disappears completely. These quiet observations help determine the day's work. Some fields need more water. Others can wait another day. Experience often speaks more softly than words. Near the edge of the village stands a small shrine. Its whitewashed walls glow beneath the sunlight. Fresh flowers gathered from the riverbank rest beside simple offerings of bread and grain. A woman pauses briefly before continuing toward the fields. She bows her head for only a few moments. Her prayer is quiet. Perhaps she asks for healthy crops. Perhaps she gives thanks for the flood that arrived at the proper time. Perhaps she simply seeks strength for another long afternoon. No one asks. Faith often lives peacefully inside silence. Beyond the shrine, a young scribe sits beneath a woven canopy stretched between wooden poles. The shade protects delicate sheets of papyrus from direct sunlight. He carefully reviews earlier notes. Every field has a name. Every family has responsibilities. Each expected harvest must eventually find its way into careful records. His reed pen moves with steady precision. Tiny symbols appear one after another. To many farmers, the writing seems almost magical. They cannot read the signs themselves. Yet they trust the scribes' careful work because generations before them have done the same. Knowledge takes many forms. Some understand the language of soil. Others understand the language of ink. Both help sustain the kingdom. Farther down the river, another village prepares for the coming harvest in much the same way. Children chase ducks away from young plants. Old men sharpen sickles made from wood fitted with carefully shaped stone blades. Women weave new baskets from reeds collected during the previous week. The baskets must be strong. Soon they will carry grain from field to threshing floor. Every season demands preparation long before the first stalk is cut. The rhythm repeats itself year after year. The river floods. The water withdraws. Seeds are planted. Plants grow. Harvest arrives. Grain is stored. Then the waiting begins again. No season remains forever. No field stays unchanged. The people understand this deeply. Their lives are measured not by numbered calendars, but by the returning gifts of the Nile. As midday approaches, workers slowly gather beneath scattered patches of shade. A wide sycamore tree offers relief beside one irrigation canal. Several families sit together upon woven mats spread over the ground. The meal is simple. Fresh bread still warm from the oven. Onions peeled with practiced hands. Dried fish shared among neighbors. Dates sweetened by weeks beneath the desert sun. A small clay jar passes from person to person. Cool water tastes especially refreshing after hours of labor. Conversation remains gentle. One farmer speaks about repairing a canal before the next planting season. Another wonders whether migrating birds will arrive early this year. An elderly woman remembers floods from many years ago when the river climbed higher than anyone expected. Her grandchildren listen quietly. They have heard the stories before. Still, they enjoy hearing them again. The past lives comfortably around these shared meals. No one rushes to leave. The shade is precious now. Even the oxen lie quietly upon the ground. Goats settle beneath low trees. Birds become still. The entire countryside seems to breathe more slowly beneath the heavy warmth of midday. The farmer leans against the trunk of the sycamore. Its rough bark feels cool against his back. He closes his eyes for only a short while. Not sleeping. Simply resting. He listens. The distant murmur of flowing water. The gentle rustle of palm leaves. A child's quiet laughter. The soft chewing of animals nearby. The crackling sound from someone breaking another loaf of bread. These ordinary sounds have surrounded him throughout his life. He hardly notices them anymore. Yet together they create the peaceful heartbeat of the village. Before long, someone quietly stands. Others follow. The afternoon's work still waits. Harvest season offers little time for long rest. Tools are lifted once again. Sandals press into dusty paths. Families return to their separate fields with calm determination. The sun remains high above ancient Egypt, and beneath its warm light, thousands of ordinary people continue their patient work, one careful step at a time, helping shape the abundant harvest that will one day fill the Pharaoh's great storehouses while life beside the timeless Nile flows on in its gentle, unhurried rhythm. The afternoon settles gently across the Nile Valley like a warm blanket. The brightness of midday begins to soften, though the heat still rises from the earth in slow waves. Workers move a little more carefully now. Their steps are steady, measured, conserving strength for the remaining hours of daylight. The farmer returns to the field carrying a wooden rake over one shoulder. The tool is smooth from many years of use. His father held it before him, and perhaps his grandfather before that. In Egypt, tools often remain in families for generations, repaired again and again rather than replaced. He kneels beside a row of young plants and loosens the soil around their roots. The earth is dark and crumbly beneath the surface. Tiny green shoots stand upright, their leaves catching the sunlight. They are still small, but the farmer already imagines the heavy grain heads they may one day carry. Nearby, his son guides water through a narrow channel. He uses a flat wooden board to block one path and open another. The water changes direction immediately, flowing toward a section of field that has begun to dry. The boy watches closely, learning how much water is enough and how much is too much. These lessons cannot be taught in a single day. They are learned through many seasons of watching the land. A gentle wind rises from the river. It carries the smell of wet reeds and cool water across the fields. Workers lift their faces toward the breeze for a moment before continuing. Even a small wind feels like a gift during the long Egyptian afternoon. Farther along the riverbank, a group of women wash linen garments in shallow water. They kneel on smooth stones and rub the cloth carefully with their hands. The fabric is simple, woven from flax grown in nearby fields. After washing, they spread the linen across reeds and low bushes to dry in the sun. The white cloth glows brightly against the darker earth. As they work, they speak quietly about ordinary things. A child who has learned to carry water without spilling. A roof that needs new reeds before the next rainy season. A neighbor who baked especially good bread that morning. Their voices rise and fall softly, blending with the sound of moving water. Children play nearby, building small canals in the mud with sticks and their hands. They imitate the work of their parents without realizing it. One child blocks the water with a lump of mud while another opens a new path. The tiny stream changes direction, and they laugh with quiet delight. Someday these same children will guide real irrigation channels across real fields. The afternoon light grows warmer. Palm trees cast longer shadows. Birds begin returning to the reeds along the river. The village potter steps outside his workshop and examines the jars drying in the sun. He taps one gently with his knuckle, listening to the sound. Still damp. It needs more time. He moves it slightly so the light reaches another side. Patience is as important to a potter as it is to a farmer. Inside the workshop, the air smells of wet clay and smoke from the firing pit. Rows of finished jars stand against the wall, waiting to be filled with grain after harvest. Some are marked with simple symbols scratched into the surface before firing. A family mark. A measure. A reminder of who owns the jar. The potter knows many of these marks by memory. Near the center of the village, a carpenter sits beneath a shaded awning repairing a wooden plow. He fits a new piece into the worn frame and binds it with leather strips soaked in water. As the leather dries, it tightens and holds the joint firmly in place. Wood is precious in Egypt, where large trees are not common. Broken tools are carefully mended whenever possible. A young apprentice watches closely. The carpenter works slowly, explaining each step. The apprentice nods, though he will understand fully only after repeating the work many times himself. Knowledge passes from hand to hand as quietly as water passes through the fields. At the edge of the village, an elderly man sits beside a wall in the shade. His farming days are mostly behind him now. His knees no longer allow long hours in the fields. Instead, he watches the village life unfold. Children greet him respectfully as they pass. Occasionally someone stops to ask his advice about planting, weather, or irrigation. He answers slowly, choosing his words with care. He remembers years when the flood arrived late. Years when it rose especially high. Years when insects damaged part of the crop. Years when the harvest filled every storage jar. His memories stretch farther than written records in this small village. People listen because experience carries a quiet authority. The sun begins its gradual descent toward the western desert. The light changes from bright gold to a softer amber color. Workers notice the change immediately. The hardest part of the day is ending. In the fields, women gather bundles of cut reeds and tie them with strips of palm fiber. Men stack tools beside the irrigation channels. Children collect forgotten baskets and carry them toward the village. The pace remains unhurried, but there is a gentle sense of completion. The farmer stands once more and looks across the land. The water channels glimmer in the low sunlight. Young plants sway gently in the evening breeze. Birds circle above the river before settling for the night. He feels tired, but it is a familiar tiredness, the kind that comes after useful work. A donkey brays somewhere near the village. Another answers from farther away. The sounds echo softly across the fields. Smoke begins rising from cooking fires. The smell of baking bread returns, mixed now with the scent of lentils, onions, and fish cooking in clay pots. Families slowly make their way home. Their shadows stretch long across the ground. Sandals scuff softly against dusty paths. No one speaks loudly. The evening itself encourages quiet. Inside the farmer's home, the air is cooler than outside. Thick mud brick walls have absorbed the heat of the day and now release it slowly. His wife stirs a pot suspended above a small fire. The meal is simple: bread, lentils, onions, and a little fish from the river. The children wash their hands with a small amount of water poured carefully from a jar. They sit together on woven mats. Before eating, they pause for a brief moment of thanks. Not a formal ceremony. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the river has once again provided enough. The youngest child falls asleep before finishing the meal. His head droops against his mother's shoulder. She smiles and carries him to a sleeping mat in the corner of the room. Outside, the sky deepens from gold to rose, then to a soft purple blue. The first evening stars appear above the eastern horizon. Palm leaves rustle gently in the cooling air. After supper, neighbors gather briefly in a small courtyard. Someone tells a story about a clever fisherman who once found a net full of fish after everyone else had given up for the day. The children listen with wide eyes. The adults smile quietly. They have heard the story before, but familiar stories are comforting. An old woman hums a slow song while mending a linen garment by the light of a small oil lamp. The flame flickers gently, casting soft shadows on the mud brick wall. Her needle moves in and out of the cloth with practiced ease. Farther away, the village scribe continues working even after sunset. His lamp burns beside a stack of papyrus sheets. He records the day's observations while they are still fresh in his mind. Field conditions. Water levels. Labor assignments. Grain estimates. His writing is neat and careful despite the dim light. The village gradually grows quieter. Goats settle inside their pens. Dogs curl beside doorways. The last cooking fires burn low. Across the river, another village becomes visible only through scattered points of lamplight. The Nile reflects the stars now. Its surface is dark and smooth, carrying the sky upon the water. A night bird calls from the reeds. Then silence returns. The farmer steps outside before sleeping. He stands beneath the open sky and breathes the cooler air. The desert beyond the fields is almost invisible in the darkness, but he knows it is there, waiting quietly beyond the reach of the river. He thinks briefly about tomorrow's work. more watering, more planting, more repairs. The tasks are endless, yet they do not trouble him. They are simply the shape of life beside the Nile. He returns inside. The oil lamp is nearly empty. His family already sleeps. He lies down on a woven mat, and the sounds of the night surround him, distant water, rustling reeds, an occasional animal moving in the dark. Slowly, his breathing becomes steady. The village rests. The fields rest. Even the great river seems to move more softly beneath the stars. And somewhere beyond the darkness, the seeds planted that morning continue their silent work beneath the warm Egyptian earth, growing patiently toward the abundant harvest that will one day fill the Pharaoh's storehouses while another peaceful night settles over the timeless Nile. The night passes quietly across the Nile Valley. Above the sleeping villages, the stars remain bright and countless. They stretch from one horizon to the other, reflected in the slow-moving river until it becomes difficult to tell where the water ends and the sky begins. The desert beyond the green fields lies still beneath the moonlight. Its rolling sands seem almost silver in the darkness, untouched except for the faint tracks left by travelers days before. The village sleeps deeply. Inside the mud brick homes, families rest upon woven reed mats. Some sleep beneath light linen blankets, while others leave them folded beside their beds, letting the cooler night air drift through open doorways. Thick walls, warmed by the day's sun, now release a gentle heat that keeps the rooms comfortable until dawn. The little oil lamps have burned low. Only a few still glow softly. Their flames flicker whenever the night breeze slips through narrow windows. The sounds of the village are different now. During the day there are footsteps, voices, wooden tools striking the earth, donkeys calling across the fields, and children laughing between the houses. Now there is only the quiet breathing of sleeping families. A goat shifts gently inside its pen. Somewhere a dog lifts its head, listens for a moment, then curls back into sleep. Crickets fill the silence with their steady song. Near the riverbank, frogs answer one another from hidden pools among the reeds. The Nile never truly becomes silent. Even in the deepest part of the night, the water continues its endless journey north. Its quiet current brushes softly against the muddy shore. Reeds sway gently. A fish rises briefly to the surface before disappearing again beneath the dark water. Far from the villages, small fishing boats have been pulled safely onto the bank. Their ropes are tied securely around wooden posts driven into the earth. Nets hang from simple frames, drying after a long day's work. Tiny drops of water still cling to the woven fibers, shining whenever the moonlight touches them. The fishermen sleep nearby. Tomorrow they will return to the river before sunrise. Their routine changes little throughout the year. The river has become part of their own heartbeat. Not far away, a young apprentice potter wakes for a moment. He hears the frogs outside and the gentle movement of palm leaves against one another. He turns over, pulling his linen cloth a little closer. Within moments he is asleep again. Tomorrow he will spend another day learning how to shape clay with patient hands. He dreams of smooth jars, perfectly balanced, standing in long rows beneath the afternoon sun. Across the village, the elderly farmer sleeps more lightly. Years of rising before dawn have trained his body to expect the morning long before the first light appears. Even in sleep, he seems aware of the changing air. The coolness deepens. The breeze becomes slightly stronger. Somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, another day quietly prepares itself. Hours pass. The moon slowly crosses the sky. Its pale light moves across the rooftops of mud brick homes, over stacked baskets waiting beside doorways, across wooden plows leaning against walls, and over quiet courtyards where tomorrow's grain will once again be cleaned, dried, and stored. The stars begin to fade almost without anyone noticing. The eastern horizon changes first. Not bright. Only slightly lighter than before. A soft gray replaces the deep black of night. One by one, the village begins to wake. A rooster calls. Another answers from farther away. Soon several more voices join together. The sound travels gently across the still countryside. Inside the farmer's home, his wife opens her eyes. For a few moments she simply listens. She hears the river. She hears distant birds. She hears her youngest child breathing peacefully beside her. Then she rises carefully so as not to wake the others. Her feet touch the cool clay floor. The room still carries the scent of yesterday's bread and smoke from the cooking fire. She kneels beside the hearth. Only a few glowing embers remain beneath the ashes. She blows gently. A faint orange light grows brighter. She adds several dry reeds. Then a few small sticks. Soon a tiny flame appears. The fire has returned. Outside, the village is slowly filling with the gentle sounds of another beginning. Clay jars are lifted. Doors open quietly. Someone sweeps yesterday's dust from a small courtyard with a bundle of palm fibers. The soft brushing sound mixes with the singing of early birds. Nearby, two young girls carry empty water jars toward the Nile. The air is wonderfully cool. Their footsteps are slow. There is no need to hurry. Morning is the calmest part of the day. Mist rises lightly above the river. It hangs just above the surface, glowing softly beneath the first hints of sunlight. The girls kneel carefully at the water's edge. They dip their jars beneath the surface. Cool water fills them with a pleasant bubbling sound. The jars become heavy almost immediately. Each girl steadies one against her shoulder before beginning the quiet walk home. As they return, they pass fishermen preparing their boats. One man checks the knots holding his fishing net together. Another sharpens a small bronze hook. An older fisherman quietly examines the sky. He has done this every morning for longer than anyone can remember. He studies the clouds, the breeze, and the color of the horizon. These small signs tell him much about the day ahead. He smiles gently. The weather will be calm. Good for fishing. The first golden light appears. It spreads slowly across the tops of the palm trees before reaching the fields. Tiny drops of dew sparkle briefly upon the young plants. Within an hour the warmth of the sun will carry them away. For now they shine like countless tiny jewels scattered across the dark soil. The farmer steps outside. He stretches slowly. His muscles still ache from yesterday. His hands remain rough. Small cuts along his fingers have already begun to heal. Every mark tells the story of many seasons spent working beside the Nile. He walks toward the fields carrying only a wooden staff. The others will follow shortly with tools. For these first few moments he simply wishes to see how the land has rested during the night. The soil feels cool beneath his sandals. The irrigation channels remain full. The water reflects the growing colors of dawn. A pair of ibis birds stand quietly nearby, searching for insects among the reeds. The farmer watches them for a moment. Their slow movements seem perfectly suited to the peaceful morning. He smiles quietly. The land appears healthy. Along another field, several oxen wait patiently beside their wooden yokes. Their breath forms faint clouds in the cool morning air. One young boy gently brushes dust from the neck of his favorite animal. He speaks softly while working. The ox does not understand every word, perhaps, but it knows the familiar voice. The bond between people and animals has grown through countless mornings just like this one. Nearby, an older woman gathers fresh herbs growing beside her home. She selects only a few leaves. Enough to flavor the morning meal. Nothing more. She leaves the rest to continue growing. She has always believed that taking only what is needed allows the garden to remain generous. Her grandchildren watch carefully. They will remember these habits long after they are grown. The baker's oven is already warm. Fresh dough waits inside wide clay bowls covered with linen cloth. As the fire grows hotter, the dough slowly rises. Soon the first loaves will enter the oven. The familiar smell of baking bread once again begins drifting through the village. No matter how many mornings pass, that scent never loses its comfort. Workers passing the bakery smile almost without thinking. It reminds them of home. It reminds them that another day has begun well. Farther along the village road, a carpenter sharpens the blade of an adze against a smooth stone. The steady scraping sound echoes softly through the quiet air. Wood curls gently beneath the blade as he tests its sharpness on a small piece of sycamore. Nearby, his apprentice gathers tiny wood shavings to use later for kindling. Nothing useful is thrown away. Even the smallest pieces find another purpose. The village scribe emerges from his home carrying rolled sheets of papyrus inside a leather case. He pauses briefly to watch the sun rise. Although much of his work concerns numbers, measurements, and records, he still appreciates these peaceful moments before the day's writing begins. He knows that the careful lines he draws today may help guide the harvest months from now. Each recorded measure, each counted basket, each written symbol quietly supports the work of hundreds of unseen hands. As the sunlight spreads farther across the valley, the fields gradually come alive once again. Workers arrive carrying hoes, baskets, ropes, and sickles. Children follow beside them, eager to help however they can. The irrigation channels sparkle beneath the morning light. Birds lift into the sky in graceful circles. The wind carries the fresh scent of damp earth mixed with new bread and growing grain. Another ordinary day begins. No great ceremony marks its arrival. No trumpet sounds across the fields. The greatest harvest of the Pharaoh is built not through grand moments, but through thousands of quiet mornings exactly like this one. Every sunrise offers another chance to tend the soil. Every careful hand adds something small. Every family contributes another piece to the great rhythm of ancient Egypt. And beneath the gentle warmth of the rising sun, the Nile continues its endless journey, flowing patiently beside villages whose peaceful routines have changed so little that one day blends almost seamlessly into the next, each one carrying the promise of another good harvest waiting patiently in the seasons ahead. The sun continues its slow climb above the eastern horizon, filling the Nile Valley with a warm golden light that seems to linger on every leaf, every stone, and every quiet path between the fields. The cool breath of dawn slowly fades, replaced by the gentle warmth that the people of Egypt have known all their lives. The village is fully awake now. From every doorway comes the soft rhythm of another ordinary day. A woman shakes a woven mat outside her home, sending yesterday's dust drifting into the morning air. An old man carefully sweeps the narrow path beside his wall with a bundle of palm reeds. Children carry empty baskets toward the fields, hoping to be useful before the heat grows too strong. Nearby, a donkey patiently waits while its owner secures two large clay jars across its back. Nothing feels hurried. The day is long. There is enough time for every task if each one is done with care. The farmer reaches the edge of his land just as the first sunlight begins touching the tops of the growing wheat. Tiny drops of moisture still cling to the leaves, sparkling for only a few precious moments before disappearing into the warmth. He pauses without speaking. This is one of his favorite moments of the day. The fields seem almost to breathe. The young grain moves gently whenever the breeze passes across it. Small birds flutter from stalk to stalk searching for insects hidden among the leaves. Dragonflies glide above the irrigation canals, their delicate wings shining in the morning light. The farmer bends down and gently runs his fingers across the wheat. Each stalk feels a little stronger than it did only days before. Growing happens quietly. One morning looks almost the same as the one before. Yet week after week, the fields slowly change. The farmer has learned not to expect great changes in a single day. Nature prefers patience. Across the canal, another family begins tending a field of flax. Its slender blue flowers open beneath the sunlight, covering the land with soft color. The flax will one day become linen. Someone will wear clothing woven from these delicate plants. Another family will twist the fibers into rope. Another may create fine cloth for temple workers or scribes. Every crop has its own purpose. Every field contributes something different to the life of Egypt. The youngest daughter carries a small woven basket filled with fresh dates picked only yesterday. She walks carefully between the workers, offering one to each person. No one takes more than needed. The sweet fruit provides welcome energy before the harder work begins. The little girl smiles each time someone thanks her. Although she is too young for the heavier tasks, she already understands that even small acts help the whole family. Nearby, the oxen begin pulling the wooden plow once again. Their broad hooves sink gently into the rich black earth. The plow cuts neat lines through the soil. Behind it walks the farmer's eldest son. He scatters seed with smooth, practiced movements. His hand opens. The grain falls. His hand closes. Then opens again. The motion repeats hundreds of times. There is something peaceful about its rhythm. No sudden movements. No wasted effort. Only steady work guided by experience. The birds notice immediately. Several small sparrows land behind the plow, searching for loose seeds lying on the surface. The young man smiles softly. There is always enough for a few hungry birds. Nature takes its small share. The rest belongs to the coming harvest. Farther down the valley, another group of workers repairs a larger irrigation canal that serves several villages. This canal is wider than those inside the fields. Its banks must remain strong enough to carry water throughout the growing season. The workers remove fallen branches, smooth damaged walls with wet mud, and place bundles of reeds wherever the current has begun washing away the edges. One elderly worker presses fresh mud firmly into a cracked section of the bank. Beside him, a younger man carries basket after basket of damp clay from the river. Neither speaks very much. They understand each other's work without many words. The canal has been repaired countless times before. It will need repairing again. The river gives life. The people help guide it. As the morning grows brighter, merchants begin arriving from neighboring settlements. Their donkeys walk slowly beneath loads of pottery, woven mats, dried fish, onions, baskets, and small jars filled with fragrant oils. Some merchants travel only a few miles. Others have walked for several days along the Nile. Dust clings to their sandals. The hems of their linen garments show signs of many journeys. They are welcomed with quiet hospitality. A drink of cool water. A place beneath a tree for a short rest. A few friendly questions about the villages farther south. Trade is never only about goods. It also carries news. One merchant mentions that the flood waters reached a little higher than expected in a distant farming village. Another says that date palms farther north are producing especially heavy fruit this season. Someone else has seen a new fishing camp where the river bends around a wide marsh. The information passes gently from one conversation to another. No one rushes to speak. The stories travel at the pace of walking feet. At the edge of the market area, a basket maker sits cross-legged beneath a palm tree. Bundles of fresh reeds lie beside him. His fingers move with remarkable speed, weaving each strand over and under the next. Without looking, he reaches for another reed. His hands know the pattern by memory. One basket grows steadily larger. Its shape is simple, strong, useful. Soon it will carry grain during harvest. Perhaps another will hold figs. Another may carry fish from the river. Some baskets become household treasures, lasting many years before finally wearing thin. The basket maker smiles as a curious child watches him. Without speaking, he hands the child a short reed. The child tries to copy the weaving. The first attempt slips apart almost immediately. The basket maker gently adjusts the tiny hands. Again. The reed bends. Again. Slowly, a simple pattern begins to appear. Learning in ancient Egypt often begins with watching. Only then comes doing. The scribe arrives carrying his writing board beneath one arm. He settles beneath the broad shade of a sycamore tree where the morning breeze remains pleasantly cool. Before opening his papyrus scroll, he simply watches. He sees workers entering the fields. He counts the donkeys carrying supplies. He notices how much water flows through each canal. These quiet observations matter. Later, they will become neat lines of careful writing. He dips his reed pen into dark ink. One small symbol follows another. The page slowly fills. His work is calm, almost meditative. Each mark connects the present day with future harvest records. Nearby, temple workers begin preparing daily offerings. Fresh bread is placed upon smooth stone tables. Small bowls of grain stand beside flowers gathered along the riverbank. The temple itself is peaceful at this early hour. The cool stone walls hold the freshness of the night. Incense drifts slowly upward. Its gentle fragrance mixes with the scent of flowers and newly baked bread. A young apprentice carefully polishes a bronze bowl until it catches the morning light. An older priest quietly arranges offerings with practiced hands. No loud ceremonies fill the air. Only soft footsteps echo through the cool halls. Outside once more, the warmth slowly increases. Workers tie linen cloth around their heads to shield themselves from the stronger sunlight. The fields shimmer gently beneath the growing heat. The farmer wipes sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. His breathing remains steady. He has known this rhythm since childhood. Work. Pause. Drink water. Continue. The body learns the land just as the land shapes the body. Near one irrigation channel, the youngest children are trusted with an important task. They watch for floating reeds or clumps of mud that might block the water. Whenever they see one, they quickly remove it with long sticks. They take the responsibility seriously. Each successful effort earns a quiet smile from nearby adults. They feel proud. Little by little, they become part of the work that sustains the village. As the sun approaches the middle of the sky, birds seek shade beneath palm leaves. Even insects seem quieter now. The wind grows softer. The smell of warm earth rises from the fields. The wheat sways almost lazily. The river continues its endless journey beside the farmland, carrying cool water toward villages that lie beyond the horizon. No one standing here can see those distant places. Yet they know the river will reach them. Just as it reached their own fields. just as it reached their fathers and grandfathers before them. Time moves like the Nile. Always forward. Never hurried. Never truly still. The farmer looks across the wide green fields once again. Everywhere he sees people quietly working. A woman carrying water balanced upon her head. A young boy leading patient oxen. An old man repairing a wooden rake beneath the shade of an acacia tree. A fisherman rowing gently along the riverbank. A baker removing warm loaves from a clay oven. A potter smoothing the rim of another storage jar. None of them may ever stand inside the Pharaoh's palace. Many will never travel beyond neighboring villages. Yet together they create the abundance that fills the royal granaries, supplies the temples, feeds the cities, and carries ancient Egypt from one peaceful season into the next. The greatest harvest of the Pharaoh does not belong to a single ruler. It begins every quiet morning with ordinary people whose names are long forgotten, whose hands are rough with honest work, and whose lives flow as gently and faithfully as the timeless waters of the Nile itself. The morning slowly gives way to the quiet strength of late morning, and the sunlight settles across the Nile Valley with gentle certainty. The coolness that greeted the first workers has almost completely disappeared now. Warmth gathers upon the earth, and the scent of damp soil slowly changes into the familiar smell of dry fields, fresh reeds, and grain growing beneath the Egyptian sky. The farmer pauses beside an irrigation channel. He kneels carefully. The water glides past without making much sound, slipping between smooth banks built by many patient hands over many generations. He reaches into the cool current. For a brief moment he lets the water run across his fingers. It feels refreshing after the growing warmth of the morning. Small fish dart between patches of reeds. A tiny turtle rests upon a flat stone warmed by the sun. Dragonflies hover above the surface before suddenly changing direction, their delicate wings catching flashes of golden light. The farmer smiles quietly. Even after many years, the river still offers small surprises. He rises slowly and continues walking along the edge of his field. The wheat has begun to sway together as the breeze strengthens slightly. Watching it from a distance almost feels like watching the Nile itself. One gentle wave follows another. The stalks bend. Then rise again. The movement is slow enough to calm even the busiest thoughts. Nearby, his wife has begun gathering bundles of fresh vegetables from a small family garden. Compared to the wide grain fields, the garden is modest. Rows of onions grow beside garlic. Lettuce spreads low across the soil. A few herbs fill the air with their pleasant fragrance whenever their leaves are touched. She carefully removes weeds growing between the plants. Every vegetable is valued. Nothing is taken for granted. Even a small harvest from the garden helps feed the family throughout the season. Her youngest daughter follows close behind carrying a tiny basket almost too large for her small arms. She watches carefully before picking each onion. Sometimes she chooses one that is still too young. Her mother gently shakes her head. Not yet. Give it a little more time. The child nods with complete seriousness. She places it back into the soil exactly where it was. Learning patience begins with very small lessons. Across another field, several young men carry long bundles of papyrus cut earlier that morning. The green stalks are fresh and heavy. They stack them neatly beneath a shaded shelter where they will later be prepared for many different uses. Some stems will become baskets. Others will become mats for sleeping. The finest pieces may one day become smooth sheets of papyrus for scribes. The workers know that each bundle represents many hours of future work. Nothing happens quickly. Every finished object begins as something simple. One older craftsman demonstrates how to separate the soft inner layers of a papyrus stem. His hands move slowly enough that every apprentice can follow. The strips are laid side by side. Another layer crosses the first. Water from the river helps them cling together. Later, after pressing and drying beneath heavy stones, the surface will become smooth enough for careful writing. The apprentices watch in respectful silence. The lesson has been taught many times before. It will be taught again long after today's students become teachers themselves. Farther toward the village, a group of women sit together beneath the shade of several date palms. Their work is peaceful. Each woman holds a spindle in one hand while gently twisting flax fibers into thread. The spindles turn almost endlessly. Round and round. The fibers become longer, stronger, more even. The conversation among them rises and falls like the breeze itself. They speak of children learning their first chores. They wonder whether enough figs will ripen before the next market day. One remembers a particularly beautiful flood many years ago when lotus flowers covered every quiet inlet along the river. Another smiles at the memory. She had been only a little girl then. They speak softly. Sometimes several minutes pass without anyone saying a word. The spinning itself provides a peaceful rhythm. Hands continue moving whether conversation is lively or silent. Nearby, an elderly grandmother rocks gently beneath the tree while holding her youngest grandchild. The baby sleeps peacefully. Tiny fingers remain curled against the linen cloth wrapped around the child's body. The grandmother quietly hums an old melody. It has no grand performance. It is simply a song passed from one generation to another. Perhaps her own mother sang it. Perhaps her grandmother before that. Its words are almost forgotten. The melody remains. Simple. Gentle. Comforting. The breeze carries the quiet tune across the courtyard before it disappears into the sounds of the village. A short distance away, the blacksmith begins heating a small bronze blade inside a charcoal fire. His workshop feels warmer than anywhere else in the village. The air smells of smoke and heated metal. He works carefully. Bronze is valuable. Every piece must be shaped with skill. He lifts the glowing tool with tongs. Places it upon a smooth stone. Strikes gently with a hammer. Again. Again. Not with great force. Only enough to guide the metal into the proper shape. His apprentice watches every movement. The older man's arms are steady despite many years of labor. He has learned that careful strikes accomplish more than hurried ones. Outside the workshop, several farmers wait patiently with worn tools needing repair. No one complains. Every person understands that good work requires time. They sit beneath the shade sharing quiet conversation while waiting their turn. One farmer unwraps a small loaf of bread from a linen cloth. He breaks it into several pieces. Without speaking, he offers portions to the others. The bread is accepted with grateful smiles. Simple kindness appears often in the village. It asks for no reward. Along the riverbank, fishermen prepare to check woven traps placed among the reeds the previous evening. A narrow wooden boat glides silently across the water. The boatman uses a long pole rather than oars in the shallower places. The pole presses gently against the riverbed. The boat moves forward without disturbing the quiet surface very much. Morning sunlight reflects from the water onto the underside of the reeds, making them glow softly. The fishermen lift the first trap. Several silver fish shimmer inside. Not many. Enough. They nod with quiet satisfaction. Enough has always been an important word beside the Nile. Enough grain. Enough fish. Enough water. Enough shade. Enough rest before tomorrow begins. The traps are lowered once more. The fishermen continue farther downstream where another waits beneath overhanging reeds. Back in the fields, children carry cool water to their parents. The clay jars leave damp circles upon the ground wherever they are set down. Workers drink slowly. Some pour a little water across their wrists and faces before returning to work. The smallest children sit beneath woven shelters made from palm leaves. There they play with little figures shaped from clay. One child makes tiny cattle. Another shapes a miniature fishing boat. A third carefully builds a pretend granary no larger than both hands together. Their games reflect the world surrounding them. Even play quietly prepares them for the future. The scribe continues writing beneath his favorite sycamore tree. The shade shifts little by little as the sun climbs higher. He occasionally pauses to sharpen the tip of his reed pen with a small knife. Then he returns to his careful writing. His eyes move constantly between the fields and the papyrus. A counted basket. Another completed row. A repaired canal. Each observation becomes another neat line upon the scroll. He understands that memory alone cannot preserve every detail. Writing allows the harvest to be remembered long after the fields have changed. Not far away, temple gardeners tend rows of flowers grown for daily offerings. Blue lotus blossoms float quietly in shallow pools. Their petals open fully beneath the morning sun. Workers gather only those that are ready. Others remain where they are, waiting for another day. The fragrance is gentle, fresh, almost cool despite the warmth surrounding them. Nearby, bees move patiently from flower to flower. Their quiet work goes almost unnoticed by the people passing through the gardens. Yet they too are part of the life that fills the valley. The afternoon has not yet arrived, but its presence can already be felt. The shadows have grown shorter. The breeze becomes softer. Workers begin thinking about the midday meal that will soon offer welcome rest. Still, no one rushes. One more row is planted. One more basket is carried. One more canal is checked. One more tool is repaired. Life beside the Nile is built from countless small tasks completed with steady hands and quiet hearts. The farmer looks once more toward the broad river. From this distance it shines like a ribbon of polished bronze stretching far beyond the horizon. Somewhere upstream, other villages are beginning the same day's work. Somewhere downstream, other families are gathering water, baking bread, repairing fishing nets, and tending fields that look much like these. The river joins them all together. We leave behind the busy stories without speaking. It feeds people who will never meet one another. It connects fields separated by many days of walking. The Pharaoh may rule the kingdom, but the Nile quietly cares for it each day. As the sunlight grows warmer and another peaceful morning continues toward midday, the valley remains filled with the gentle rhythm of ordinary lives, farmers bending over fertile soil, children learning patient hands, craftsmen shaping simple tools, fishermen trusting the current, and families working together beneath the endless Egyptian sky, where every calm day adds another small promise to the great harvest still waiting in the seasons ahead. The sun climbs a little higher, and the gentle warmth of the morning slowly becomes the steady heat that every farmer beside the Nile knows so well. The air feels heavier now, though the river continues to offer small moments of coolness whenever the breeze drifts across its broad surface. The farmer removes his linen headcloth for a moment and wipes the sweat from his forehead. He drinks a few careful mouthfuls of water from a clay jar. The water is cool because the jar has rested beneath the shade of a sycamore tree. He does not drink quickly. There is still much of the day ahead. Water is always respected. Every sip has traveled a long journey from the Nile through the careful hands of those who filled the jars before sunrise. He replaces the cloth across his head and returns to his work. The wheat has grown enough that the rows are easy to follow now. Between them, small weeds have begun to appear. The farmer crouches low. One by one, he gently pulls each weed from the earth. The work demands patience more than strength. If left alone, the weeds would quietly steal water from the growing grain. No one watching from a distance would notice this careful task. Yet it is one of the many quiet labors that help create a successful harvest. His daughter kneels beside him. She watches closely before reaching for a tiny green plant. She looks toward her father. He nods gently. That one may be removed. Another plant nearby is left untouched. Learning the difference takes many seasons. Mistakes are expected. Patience teaches more kindly than hurried correction. The breeze grows stronger for a few moments. Across the valley, thousands of wheat stalks bend together like gentle waves upon the river. The soft rustling sound spreads across the fields. Some workers pause only long enough to enjoy it. The sound has become one of the familiar voices of their world. When the grain is healthy, it whispers differently than dry grass. Experienced farmers can often hear the difference long before they see it. Near the irrigation canal, two brothers continue repairing a wooden water gate. The gate is simple, made from thick boards held together with wooden pegs. Years of flowing water have worn its lower edge smooth. One brother carefully lifts it while the other replaces a cracked support post. Neither speaks much. Their movements are practiced. The older brother steadies the frame. The younger presses fresh mud firmly around the base. When they finish, they lift the gate once more. Water begins flowing exactly where it should. The narrow channel fills quietly. The brothers smile. No grand celebration follows. Good work often ends with nothing more than quiet satisfaction. Farther along the canal, several white ibises walk slowly through the shallow water. Their long legs barely disturb the surface. Every few steps they lower their curved beaks beneath the water, searching for insects and small creatures hidden among the reeds. Children stop working for a moment to watch them. The birds never seem hurried. They move with calm purpose. In many ways they resemble the farmers themselves. Nearby, an elderly fisherman sits beside his boat repairing a torn net. The net stretches across his lap like a delicate web. One small hole after another receives careful attention. His fingers move with surprising speed despite their age. Thread passes through loop after loop. The tear slowly disappears. His grandson sits beside him holding a bundle of fresh cord. The boy asks few questions. Instead, he watches every movement. The old fisherman smiles. Someday, he says softly, your hands will remember this even when your mind is busy. The boy nods. He does not yet fully understand. One day he will. Across the village, the smell of bread begins drifting through the streets once again. The baker removes another group of round loaves from the clay oven using a long wooden paddle. The crusts are golden brown. Steam escapes through tiny cracks as they cool upon woven trays. People passing the bakery slow their steps almost without thinking. Fresh bread has a way of making everyone pause. The baker places several loaves aside for workers who will collect them later. Others are exchanged for vegetables, fish, linen, or pottery. Not every exchange requires coins or precious metals. Most people know one another well. Trust has been built over many years. The baker knows the farmer will bring grain after harvest. The farmer knows the baker will always have bread ready when needed. Their agreement is woven into the rhythm of village life. In another courtyard, a woman prepares dried figs for storage. She carefully examines each fruit before placing it upon woven mats beneath the sun. Only the ripest are chosen. The others remain inside baskets for another day. Nearby, dates are spread in neat rows. Their sweet scent fills the warm air. A few curious bees wander among them before continuing toward flowering herbs growing nearby. Storage is as important as growing. The people understand that every season must provide not only for today, but also for months still to come. Clay jars stand ready inside cool storage rooms. Large woven baskets wait beneath covered roofs. Every family quietly prepares for the future while living peacefully within the present day. At the edge of the village, a group of children gather beneath the broad branches of an acacia tree. An old storyteller sits upon a smooth stone. His hair has turned white with age. His voice is soft and unhurried. He tells simple tales about clever birds, patient farmers, faithful donkeys, and the generous Nile. The stories are not meant to surprise. They are meant to comfort. Many children already know exactly how each tale ends. That hardly matters. The familiar words settle gently into the warm afternoon like birds returning to their nests. Some children lean against their older brothers. Others quietly braid long blades of grass while listening. Even the storyteller pauses now and then to watch the breeze move through the trees. Silence belongs naturally between his words. Near the temple gardens, workers continue tending flowering plants. Blue lotus blossoms open wider beneath the bright sun. Their fragrance drifts softly across the pools. A gardener carefully removes faded leaves floating upon the water. The pools reflect passing clouds, palm branches, and the graceful flight of dragonflies. Tiny frogs rest upon smooth stones warmed by sunlight. Everything feels peaceful. Nothing asks to be hurried. The village scribe rolls up one completed sheet of papyrus. He ties it gently with a thin strip of linen before reaching for another blank sheet. Nearby, his inkstone rests beside a small bowl of water. Every so often he moistens the ink, mixing it carefully until it flows smoothly once again. He writes slowly. Each symbol is placed with care. The harvest depends upon many hands. The records deserve the same patience. The carpenter finishes repairing a farmer's wooden rake. Before returning it, he runs his hand along the smooth handle, searching for rough places that might trouble tired hands during long hours of work. Finding one small splinter, he quietly sands it away using a rough piece of stone. Only then does he smile with satisfaction. Good craftsmanship often hides itself. The best repair is one that feels natural, as though nothing had ever been broken. The farmer thanks him with a small bundle of onions gathered that morning. Both men seem pleased with the exchange. Neither measures its value in numbers. Both understand its worth. Above them, the sun reaches its highest place in the sky. Shadows become short beneath the trees. The air grows still. Birdsong becomes quieter. Even the insects seem to slow their busy flight. Workers begin gathering beneath shaded places for the midday meal. Some choose the broad branches of old sycamore trees. Others sit beside the cool banks of irrigation canals. Several families spread woven reed mats beneath clusters of date palms. The farmer's family gathers together beneath their favorite tree overlooking the fields. His wife unwraps fresh bread from a clean linen cloth. She places onions, cucumbers, soft cheese, dried fish, and a handful of sweet dates upon the mat. The meal is simple. Everything has been prepared with care. The youngest children eagerly reach for the dates first. Their mother laughs softly. The older children smile. The father breaks a loaf of bread into even pieces, making sure everyone receives enough. No one speaks for a little while. The quiet sounds of eating mix with the distant murmur of flowing water. A breeze stirs the leaves overhead. Small patches of sunlight dance across the ground. The oxen rest nearby beneath another tree, lazily swishing their tails. A donkey lowers its head and closes its eyes for a brief nap. Even the birds seem content to remain in the shade. After the meal, no one rises immediately. The warmth of the afternoon encourages rest. The farmer leans back against the rough trunk of the sycamore. Its broad branches have sheltered generations before him. His father once rested beneath this same tree. His grandfather likely did as well. He closes his eyes. Not to sleep deeply. Only to enjoy a few quiet moments before work begins again. He listens to the peaceful sounds surrounding him. Palm leaves rustling gently. The steady whisper of water moving through the canals. The distant call of a fisherman guiding his boat along the Nile. A child laughing somewhere beyond the wheat. The quiet hum of bees visiting tiny flowers hidden among the grasses. These are the sounds that shape his life. They ask for nothing. They simply exist, day after day, season after season. As the gentle afternoon settles over the fertile valley, the great river continues its timeless journey, carrying cool water past peaceful villages where ordinary families live with quiet purpose, tending fields, sharing simple meals beneath welcoming trees, and patiently adding another calm day to the long, unbroken story of the Pharaoh's greatest harvest. The quiet meal beneath the sycamore tree comes to an end little by little. No one rises all at once. There is no bell calling the workers back to the fields. Instead, each person seems to know exactly when it is time to stand again. The youngest children brush crumbs of bread from their linen clothes. The older boys gather the empty clay bowls. One daughter carefully folds the woven mat before carrying it back toward the house. Nothing is left behind. Even the smallest piece of bread is saved. The farmer remains seated for another moment beneath the broad branches. He watches the leaves moving softly overhead. Tiny rays of sunlight pass through the spaces between them, making gentle patterns upon the ground. The tree has stood here longer than anyone in the village can remember. Its roots reach deep into the rich earth beside the canal. Its branches have sheltered countless families from the afternoon sun. Many conversations have taken place beneath its shade. Many quiet meals have ended here. Many tired workers have rested their backs against its rough trunk before returning to the fields. The farmer places one hand upon the bark almost as if greeting an old friend. Then he stands. The afternoon work begins once more. The sun still shines brightly, but it has already begun its slow journey westward. Although the heat remains strong, everyone knows that cooler hours will eventually return. Until then, steady hands continue their patient labor. The family walks together across the field. Their sandals leave faint prints in the soft soil near the irrigation channels. The youngest child skips for a few steps before remembering she is trying very hard to walk like the adults. Her father notices. He smiles but says nothing. There is no hurry to grow older. Childhood beside the Nile passes gently. Soon enough she will carry heavier baskets and learn more difficult tasks. For now, she simply enjoys walking through the tall wheat while dragonflies dance above the water. Nearby, another farmer begins inspecting his barley. Unlike the wheat, the barley heads have already started changing color. He gently rubs one between his fingers. Several grains fall into his palm. He studies them carefully. Not yet. Another little while. The harvest must never begin too early. Nature decides the proper moment. Human hands simply wait with patience. His son watches every movement. The older man does not explain everything aloud. Instead, he allows the young man to observe. After many seasons, experience teaches what words alone cannot. The afternoon breeze returns. It is stronger now than it was during the middle of the day. It carries with it the fresh scent of the river mixed with the sweet fragrance of flowering lotus drifting from quiet ponds nearby. The reeds along the banks sway gently together. Hidden among them, small birds build careful nests woven from grasses and soft fibers. One mother bird arrives carrying a tiny insect for her waiting chicks. She disappears into the nest. Moments later she flies away again. Even the smallest creatures follow steady routines beneath the Egyptian sky. Farther along the riverbank, several women gather bundles of freshly washed linen. The cloth has dried completely beneath the afternoon sun. Each piece feels warm as they fold it carefully into neat squares. Some garments will be worn while working in the fields. Others are saved for temple visits or family celebrations. One older woman smooths the wrinkles from a child's little tunic before smiling quietly. Children seem to outgrow clothing almost as quickly as young plants outgrow their first leaves. Back inside the village, the scent of fresh clay fills the potter's workshop. The morning's jars have dried enough to be moved toward the kiln. The potter lifts each one with great care. Although they appear strong, they remain delicate until firing is complete. His apprentice follows close behind carrying smaller bowls stacked neatly inside one another. The kiln itself has already been warmed. Dry wood crackles softly beneath carefully arranged pottery. Heat builds slowly. The firing cannot be rushed. If the flames become too hot too quickly, weeks of careful work may be lost. The potter knows this well. He watches the fire patiently. Sometimes the best work is simply waiting. Outside, a pair of cats wander quietly between the houses. They move almost without sound, pausing now and then to watch tiny lizards warming themselves upon sunlit stones. The cats belong to no single household. The entire village welcomes them. They help keep grain stores free from hungry mice. Children often leave little scraps of fish for them after supper. The cats accept these gifts with calm dignity before continuing their silent patrol. Near one storage building, several workers inspect the large granaries already holding grain from earlier harvests. The structures are tall and carefully built. Their thick mud brick walls help protect the precious grain from heat and moisture. One worker climbs a simple wooden ladder to examine the roof. Another checks the heavy wooden doors. Everything must remain secure. The grain inside represents many months of labor. It must feed families long after the growing season has ended. The workers brush away loose dust and repair tiny cracks with fresh mud. Small acts of care today prevent greater problems tomorrow. The village scribe arrives carrying a small bundle of rolled papyrus. He pauses beside the granary. A steward joins him. Together they quietly compare records with the amount of grain already stored. The steward counts carefully. The scribe writes slowly. Neither speaks very much. Both understand the importance of accuracy. A single missing basket may not seem important on one afternoon. Across an entire kingdom, careful records help ensure that every village receives what it needs. Not because the numbers are exciting, but because they quietly protect ordinary lives. Across the fields, several young boys practice using wooden sickles that have no sharp blades. They laugh softly while pretending to harvest imaginary grain. One swings far too quickly. His grandfather gently places a hand upon the boy's shoulder. Slowly, he says with a warm smile, The grain is never in a hurry. The boy nods. He tries again. This time his movement is smoother. More careful. The grandfather smiles once more. Lessons often arrive through kindness. A little farther away, two elderly women sit beneath a date palm weaving sleeping mats from fresh reeds gathered that morning. Their fingers move with remarkable certainty. One reed passes over another. Then beneath. Then over again. The pattern repeats. The mats slowly grow longer. Their conversation wanders gently through memories. They remember years when the river flooded especially well. They remember children who are now grown with families of their own. They remember evenings filled with music during harvest festivals long ago. Neither woman rushes the story. Neither rushes the weaving. The two rhythms seem perfectly suited to one another. Along the canal, water continues flowing toward distant fields. A young boy watches carefully from a small earthen bridge. His task is simple. If leaves or broken reeds begin collecting against the wooden gate, he removes them before the water slows. He takes great pride in this responsibility. Every few moments he glances toward his father working nearby. Sometimes the older man gives an approving nod. The boy stands a little taller each time. The sun begins leaning farther toward the western sky. Its light grows softer. The harsh brightness of midday slowly changes into rich golden tones that cover the fields with warmth. Palm trees cast longer shadows across the paths. The white walls of the temple glow gently. The river itself seems almost golden where the sunlight touches its surface. Fishermen notice the change. Several begin preparing their evening nets. This is often one of the quietest times upon the Nile. The breeze has become pleasant again. The water reflects both clouds and palm trees with almost perfect clarity. One fisherman pauses before pushing his small boat away from shore. He watches several swallows skimming low above the water. They catch tiny insects without ever seeming to stop their graceful flight. He smiles. His father always believed that seeing swallows before an evening journey brought good fortune. Whether true or not, the sight always fills him with quiet happiness. Back in the fields, the farmer straightens slowly after another long hour of work. His hands are dusty. His shoulders ache pleasantly. He looks toward the western desert where distant hills now appear softer beneath the afternoon light. The desert never feels unfriendly to him. It simply waits beyond the reach of the river. Silent. Still. Patient. Like an old neighbor watching from afar. He remembers stories his grandfather once told about traveling along desert paths with caravans carrying stone, copper, and fine wood toward the Nile. Those journeys were long. Difficult. Yet every traveler had smiled with relief upon seeing the green ribbon of the river appear once more beyond the sand. The Nile welcomed everyone home. A flock of geese flies overhead in a loose line. Their calls echo softly across the valley. Several children stop working for a moment to watch them disappear into the southern sky. The sound lingers only briefly before quiet returns. Once again, only the gentle rustle of wheat, the whisper of flowing water, and the steady footsteps of workers fill the afternoon. Another peaceful day slowly moves toward evening. Another small chapter is added to the life of the village. The pharaoh may never know the names of these farmers, potters, fishermen, bakers, weavers, or children learning beside their parents. Yet their quiet labor is the heartbeat of the kingdom. Each handful of grain planted with care, each irrigation channel kept clear, each loaf of bread baked before sunrise, and each basket woven beneath the shade of a palm tree becomes part of a harvest far greater than any one person could ever accomplish alone. and as the warm light of late afternoon settles softly across the fertile banks of the Nile, the ordinary people of ancient Egypt continue their timeless work with calm hearts and steady hands, allowing another peaceful day to unfold exactly as so many days have before, beneath the endless blue sky and beside the gentle river that has carried life through the valley for countless generations. The afternoon continues its quiet journey toward evening. The sunlight no longer falls straight down from above. Instead, it stretches gently across the fields, touching the tops of the grain before slipping into the narrow paths between them. Every hour brings a small change that only patient eyes seem to notice. The farmer walks slowly along the edge of one irrigation canal. He carries no heavy tools for the moment. Instead, he simply watches. He looks at the movement of the water. He studies the color of the soil. He notices where the earth remains dark with moisture and where it has already begun to dry beneath the warm sun. Years ago, when he was still a boy, his father once told him that the land speaks quietly. It never shouts, his father had said. If you listen every day, it will tell you what it needs. At the time, those words seemed mysterious. Now, after many seasons beside the Nile, they seem perfectly ordinary. The farmer understands them completely. He kneels beside the canal and gently presses his palm against the damp earth. The soil feels cool beneath the surface. There is enough water for today. Tomorrow morning he will look again. The land changes slowly. Its needs change slowly too. Nearby, his eldest son walks through another section of the field carrying a bundle of thin reeds. He places one reed at the beginning of each newly planted row. The markers help everyone remember which areas were planted first. The work appears simple. It asks for careful attention rather than great strength. The young man pauses every few steps. He looks across the field, making sure each marker stands straight. His father notices from a distance. He says nothing. A quiet nod is enough. Praise often comes gently in the village. Children grow accustomed to reading smiles instead of speeches. Across the fields, a small flock of doves settles upon the ground. They peck carefully among scattered grains left behind during planting. Their soft cooing drifts across the warm air. One little girl watches them from behind a patch of barley. She remains perfectly still. The birds seem unafraid. For several peaceful moments, child and birds share the same quiet space beneath the afternoon sky. Eventually, the doves rise together in a flutter of pale wings. They circle once above the fields before disappearing toward the river. The girl smiles to herself before returning to help her mother gather vegetables. The village breathes with its own slow rhythm. Near one home, a young mother sits outside weaving fresh flax into fine thread. Her baby sleeps peacefully beside her inside a small basket lined with soft linen. Every now and then she gently rocks the basket with one foot while her hands continue spinning. The spindle turns. The fibers twist. The thread grows longer. The baby sleeps on. The work and the care of the child exist together without interruption. Across the courtyard, an elderly grandfather carefully repairs a wicker basket that has carried harvests for many years. Several reeds have broken along one side. He removes them one by one. Then he selects fresh reeds soaked earlier in the river so they remain flexible. His fingers weave them into place with practiced certainty. The basket slowly becomes strong again. Nothing useful is discarded without reason. Every repaired tool, every patched garment, every mended basket reflects the careful habits of people who understand the value of honest work. A short walk away, smoke rises gently from another baker's oven. The afternoon baking has begun. The baker shapes smaller loaves this time. Some families prefer them for evening meals. The dough rests briefly beneath linen cloth before entering the warm clay oven. Inside, the heat surrounds each loaf evenly. Soon the familiar aroma fills the narrow street once more. Several children passing by pause instinctively. Fresh bread has become one of the village's quiet promises. No matter how long the day has been, warm bread will greet the evening. The baker smiles as he notices the children breathing deeply. He tears a tiny piece from one loaf that cooled earlier. He hands it to the youngest child. The little one accepts it with both hands. No words seem necessary. Simple kindness passes easily from one person to another. Along the Nile itself, several fishermen drift quietly downstream. The current carries their small wooden boats almost effortlessly. Long poles rest across the sides of the boats while the fishermen watch the water carefully. One man notices tiny circles appearing upon the surface. Fish. He nods toward his companion. Together they lower a woven net. The movement is smooth, almost silent. The net spreads gently across the water before slowly sinking. Neither fisherman speaks while waiting. They have learned that silence belongs naturally upon the river. The breeze carries the scent of water lilies growing near the shore. A heron stands motionless among the reeds. Its reflection stretches beneath it like another bird standing upside down. Time seems almost suspended. Eventually the fishermen begin pulling the net. Water streams from its woven fibers. Silver fish flash brightly as they emerge into the sunlight. Not a great catch. Enough. Enough for supper. Enough to trade tomorrow morning. Enough to be thankful. The boats continue drifting downstream. Farther inland, a team of oxen slowly turns a heavy stone used for crushing harvested grain from an earlier season. The circular motion never changes. Round and round. The animals walk patiently. Their broad shoulders move with quiet strength. Dust rises gently around the stone. Nearby, two workers gather the crushed grain into shallow baskets. The work is steady. Neither fast nor slow. The rhythm itself becomes almost soothing. An elderly woman hums softly while she works beside them. No one joins the song. No one asks her to stop. The melody simply blends into the sounds of turning stone, moving sandals, and distant birds. Near the temple, gardeners continue watering young fig trees planted only a few seasons before. The trees are still small. Their branches stretch carefully toward the sunlight. One gardener pours water slowly around each trunk. Another spreads fresh reeds across the soil to help keep moisture from escaping too quickly. They work quietly. Trees ask for patience more than almost any other living thing. The people planting them know they may never enjoy their fullest shade. Perhaps their children will. Perhaps their grandchildren. Still, they plant them gladly. The future deserves care, even when it belongs to others. A little farther away, the village scribe closes his eyes for a brief moment. His hand has grown tired after many hours of writing. He places the reed pen beside his inkstone and stretches his fingers slowly. Then he looks across the fields. From beneath the shade of the sycamore, he can see nearly the entire valley. Workers appear like tiny figures moving gently through green fields. Smoke rises lazily from cooking fires beginning to awaken once again. Boats glide across the shining river. Palm trees sway softly against the clear blue sky. The scribe smiles. His records tell only part of the story. Numbers measure grain. Symbols count baskets. But no writing can fully capture the peaceful rhythm of an ordinary afternoon beside the Nile. He dips his pen into fresh ink and quietly continues. Nearby, two brothers guide several goats toward fresh grazing. The animals wander happily among patches of grass growing beside the canals. One small goat repeatedly strays too far. Its older companion gently nudges it back toward the group. The brothers laugh quietly. Even the goats seem to care for one another. As the afternoon light grows softer, shadows begin stretching farther across the earth. The bright green of the fields deepens into richer shades. Palm trunks glow with warm golden color. The white walls of distant buildings reflect the changing sunlight like polished stone. The air feels different now. Not cooler yet, but gentler. The promise of evening slowly approaches. Children sense it before anyone else. Their work grows lighter. They know that before long they will walk home together. Some begin gathering empty baskets. Others collect forgotten tools left beside the fields. One little boy proudly carries a wooden hoe nearly as tall as he is. His older sister quietly helps him balance it across his shoulder. Neither speaks. They simply smile at one another before continuing along the dusty path. The farmer watches his family from across the field. He sees each person contributing in small ways. No task is too humble. No effort is unnoticed. Together they have spent another day caring for the land that feeds them. The wheat has received water. The canals remain clear. The tools are in good condition. The animals are healthy. Tomorrow will bring another list of quiet responsibilities. For now, he allows himself one peaceful moment to stand still. He listens. The whisper of grain moving in the breeze. The distant splash of a fisherman lifting another net. The gentle creak of wooden wheels carrying baskets toward the village. The rustling leaves of the old sycamore tree. The soft calls of birds returning to their nests. The endless murmur of the Nile flowing northward. These familiar sounds have surrounded him since childhood. One day, they will surround his children. And long after every face in the village has changed, the river will continue to sing the same quiet song, while ordinary hands once again rise with the dawn to tend the fertile earth, patiently shaping another season of the Pharaoh's greatest harvest beneath the calm and timeless skies of ancient Egypt. The sun slips gently toward the western horizon, where the golden desert waits in quiet silence. Its warm light spreads across the Nile one last time, turning the slow-moving water into a ribbon of soft bronze. Every ripple catches the fading light for only a moment before letting it drift away downstream. The day's work is finished. Across the valley, farmers gather their wooden tools and rest them against their shoulders. Oxen begin the familiar walk home, their steady footsteps pressing lightly into the dusty paths. Donkeys carry empty baskets that will soon be filled again when another harvest season arrives. Children, now pleasantly tired, walk beside their parents with slower steps than they had that morning. No one hurries. Evening belongs to quiet things. The village slowly welcomes everyone home. Cooking fires glow gently inside mud brick courtyards. The comforting scent of fresh bread rises once again into the cooling air, joined by the aroma of lentils simmering in clay pots, roasted onions, herbs gathered from small gardens, and fish brought from the river before sunset. Families sit together upon woven reed mats. They share simple food. They share quiet smiles. Someone tells a familiar story that has been told many evenings before. A grandmother hums a gentle melody while mending a linen tunic by the light of a small oil lamp. A father lifts his sleepy child into his arms before carrying them inside. Outside, the breeze grows cooler. Palm leaves whisper softly above the rooftops. The first stars begin appearing, one after another, in the deepening sky. The village grows quieter with every passing moment. Dogs curl beside doorways. Goats settle peacefully inside their pens. Fishing boats rest along the muddy banks of the Nile, their nets hanging neatly to dry beneath the evening air. The potter covers his kiln. The carpenter places his tools upon a shelf. The scribe carefully rolls his last sheet of papyrus and ties it with a strip of linen before gently blowing out his lamp. Darkness settles slowly. Not suddenly. The way all peaceful evenings should. The farmer steps outside one final time. He looks across the fields that have shaped his entire life. The wheat moves gently beneath the night breeze. The irrigation canals reflect the first stars. Beyond them, the desert fades into shadow, quiet and endless. He thinks not of great kings or distant temples. He thinks of tomorrow's bread, tomorrow's water, tomorrow's sunrise. He knows that long before the first light appears, another ordinary day will quietly begin. The river will still be flowing. The birds will still greet the dawn. The ovens will warm. The sandals will touch the cool earth. Hands will once again guide water through narrow canals. Seeds will continue their silent work beneath the soil. Children will learn by watching their parents. The fields will slowly grow greener. And life beside the Nile will continue with the same patient rhythm it has followed for countless generations. The Pharaoh's greatest harvest was never created by one ruler alone. It was carried by thousands of ordinary people whose names have long since disappeared into history. Farmers who rose before sunrise. Mothers who baked bread while the village still slept. Fishermen who trusted the quiet river. Weavers who turned flax into linen. Potters who shaped humble jars. Carpenters who repaired worn tools. Scribes who carefully recorded each season. Children who slowly learned every task by watching gentle hands before their own. Together, without seeking fame, they built a kingdom one peaceful day at a time. Now the valley rests. The fields breathe beneath the moonlight. The river continues its endless journey north, just as it always has. Its waters carry the reflections of countless stars, moving so softly that the night itself seems to drift upon its surface. The breeze grows cooler still. The reeds sway gently. Somewhere in the darkness, a frog calls from the riverbank. A nightbird answers once. Then silence returns. The oil lamps fade, one by one, until only the moon remains to watch over the sleeping village. The homes become still. The workshops become still. The temples become still. Even the great fields seem to rest beneath a blanket of silver light. The Nile keeps flowing through the quiet hours, asking for nothing, promising only another dawn. And as the warm desert wind softens into the cool breath of night, ancient Egypt slowly disappears into peaceful darkness. The river flows. The stars shine. The wheat sleeps beneath the gentle sky. And with the quiet waters of the Nile whispering through the timeless valley, the ancient world slowly fades into silence, inviting heavy eyes to close, peaceful thoughts to drift away, and restful sleep to arrive as gently as another calm Egyptian night.